Guys.
Well, welcome back to the William Miller home. Getting ready to go inside, but I want to share a little bit out here before we go in. There's parts of the house you can't see from the front, so I'll explain some of it from the back, and then we'll go to the front before we go inside the front door. Okay? So, just to review, Miller built this house when he was 33. His wife Lucy was the same age, and they had 5 children. And while they lived here, they had another 5 children.
And I bet you had a lot of patience, right?
She was a special woman, yes. So the original part of the house in 1815 would have been the 2-story part on the front. So the upstairs is where they would have slept. We actually use the upstairs now as an apartment for volunteers. So those who come and volunteer here get to sleep in the same room as William Miller. It doesn't look upstairs like it did when he lived here. It's a more modern apartment, but same location. So the downstairs of the front part of the house has 2 rooms. The west and east room, or they're both parlor rooms, or sitting rooms, or we might say family room. So there's also a basement underground. These doors have stairs that go down to the basement. And there's a big, it's called a cistern, but basically a brick area that holds water. And they likely collected that water from off the roof, from the rainwater, and it was a way of keeping their food cool before the refrigerators were made. So this back part of the house was added on during William Miller's time. So as his family grew and as he had time, he added on to the house. He did not have a garage like we have. This garage was actually a woodshed. You know what he would use a woodshed for?
Wood for
Firewood,
firewood?
right. So they cooked with firewood and they heated with firewood. They had fireplaces in the downstairs. They had no heat upstairs where they slept. All the heat just radiated. You know, heat rises. So that's the way the upstairs was heated. So that was a big job to collect firewood. You know, you had to go into the woods and cut the tree down and cut it up by hand and split it. And so, yes. So in the summertime, they still cooked over the fire with wood, but mostly they didn't need as much wood in the summer. So they used this area for cooking. It was called a summer kitchen. So they didn't want to heat up the house in the summertime with a fire. They didn't have air conditioning. So they cooked their meals outside the house in this area. So this was more of like a porch area than an actual part of the house. But the upstairs above was a bedroom. So that bedroom was used for a man who was hired to work on the farm. So it's called the hired man's room. So this back part of the house here is our display room now. It was originally a dining room. And when we have a gift shop, it's called the Heritage Shop. When you go in there, that was originally the kitchen and food pantry. So our plans long term are to have a separate visitor center for volunteers to stay in, and for our display room and the museum and everything over there, and then the house could all be restored to like it would have been when William Miller lived here. So right now the only rooms that have been restored are the 2 front parlor rooms. So that's as far as we've gotten. Any questions before we go around to the front? Yes.
Realize that house is really old, 209 years old.
206. 1815. Yes, it is very old. And, well, since you mentioned how old it is, the wood on the outside of the house is not original. So this white siding has been replaced, but it's the same color, and he had wood siding that looked much like it. The green shutters, many of them are still original, but the roof tiles are not original either. The slate tiles are supposed to last 100 years, but when he built the house, they were probably wood shingles. And then later in the 1800s, they had the slate tiles. So, yeah. Maybe you saw the red back of the back of the house was red. That's not just because we ran out of white paint. There was someone who visited the house in 1843, because he did get a lot of visitors when he lived here. I don't know if we had, how the visitors number compare now to then, but the person described the house, and they said the back part of the house was red. So why Miller decided to paint the back of his house red?
Reminded him of blood.
I'm sorry?
Nothing. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Well, there's only one right answer because we don't really know why, but it was common for schoolhouses and barns to be painted red. So maybe he had some leftover paint from his barn, I don't know. But I think he would have, again, this was the later edition of the house, not the original part. So he could have added this on after he had a couple barns. But there was also someone who visited and said they could see, like a mile away, from this direction, he could see the house as red. So maybe red, just was a way for people to easily see the house from a distance so they could find their way. But we don't really know for sure what the reason was. But maybe this back part was red too. We don't really know. So, any other questions? Okay, so let's meet in the front of the house.